Hello and welcome to Monday's offering from Hearts Standard, Monday's video or audio if you're listening as a podcast, offering from Hearts Standard. My name is Joel Sked. I am joined by my colleague James Kearney. Say hello, James.
Hello, James.
Yep, I thought that you were
There
going
we
to go
go.
down that route.
Yep.
People turning off as those words came out of your mouth. But how's things, James? How was a non-Hearts Hearts weekend for yourself?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Found myself a bit lost on Saturday. Wasn't entirely sure what to do with myself. But managed to occupy my time, and thankfully, the Scotland games has kept us ticking over. So that's kind of scratched the football itch, I suppose. But yeah, no, it felt weird Saturday afternoon rolling around and not being at a game for once. That took a wee bit of getting used to.
Yeah, we'll obviously be back at the weekend. Tynecastle Park as Hearts play St Johnstone in the Premiership, and we might touch on, depending on how long we speak on different points for, we might touch on the Scotland game from a Hearts perspective, i.e. Zander Clark and Lawrence Shankland later on. But first, we are going to get cracking with a couple of questions that we left over from the Q&A from Friday. We spoke plenty on Friday, and these two questions were interesting and probably deserved a wee bit more time. So the first one is from at @GroatHill_1874 on Twitter. Are there any priority positions we should fill in the January transfer window or promote some youngsters, example, Mackenzie Kirk, Bobby McCluckey, etc.? So regarding the January transfer window, when it's probably in the next in a few weeks' time when we get closer to the window opening, we will be probably have a couple of episodes around what can be expected, what we'd like to see happen, and also articles on potential transfer targets or if there's anything that the club need to do. But looking at it now, we'll remove the youngsters aspect of the question because the next question from Scott McIntosh touches on that, so we'll combine that. So just regarding the priority positions that Hearts should fill in the January transfer window, James, you talking off air, you had a couple that couple of areas you would like to maybe see improvement in.
Yeah, again, it's probably more to flesh out the squad rather than to come in and be first team starters. I mean, obviously, a lot of it comes down to whether or not Naismith persists with the current team's shape or if he's going to change it. So right now, we last saw it was like a back three with two wing backs, a number six, a right centre mid, a kind of left centre mid, kind of attacking mid, and then two forwards up top. I thought that system's looked pretty good a few different games this season. I think of County away, obviously Motherwell, the most recent match as well, and I think that there's I think that system provides a lot of. I think it gets a lot out of the players that Naismith has to call upon. So I think going on the basis that Naismith is likely to stick with that, which he probably isn't. Let's be honest, but we can only go off what we can go off of. So I would think that first off, I'd probably say in defence, there's probably a man short there. You're probably missing out on one centre back, I would argue. Just because obviously on the left wing back, you've got Cochrane and Kingsley who are kind of nominally sharing that role. If Cochrane's to get injured, for instance, Kingsley, who has been playing at right centre back, is going to end up playing at left wing back. So you probably need somebody else to go in there. Right now, you look at the squad. Obviously, Halkett's still to come back from injury. You've got Toby Sibbick who could play there as well. But I think that particularly if Hearts are going to be sticking with the back three, maybe just one more body in there just to provide an extra bit of cover could come in really handy. Because I think, as I say, I just think that with Kingsley currently occupying right centre back, but also being another option at left wing back, there's Naismith's perhaps a wee bit short of options in that area should there be any more injuries or suspensions or anything like that. So I think that's one area where the Hearts could probably strengthen. But as I say, it's probably going to be. I would think that if somebody did come in during the January window, it's probably someone who's coming in to be perhaps fourth choice out of the three starting centre halves or something similar. So I think that maybe I think probably a younger player, someone who's not going to expect to be playing week in, week out, and who's also got room to grow and be got room to develop. Preferably someone who's quite good on the ball as well, because I look at the right centre back role in particular and think that's probably one where a little bit more depth is required, because I think Halkett and Kent, they're both quite similar players. They can both easily do the central defensive role. If one of them's a wee bit further out on the right, can they do it? Probably, but are they most comfortable there? Probably not. So I think that, just another ball-playing defender, one who could play on the right, could really help, just because I think that's one area where Hearts are a little bit shy at the moment, or just potentially they could be if there was a run of nasty injuries or something like that, which, as we've already seen, can happen. Like the defence has been not quite decimated, but there's been a lot of significant absentees for a big chunk of the season, and if that happens again, it could leave Hearts really short of options, I think.
And anywhere else?
The other area as well would be at number 6. So again, this depends on whether or not Naismith is going to stick with playing with a number 6 or not. I think since Benny Beningibi's come back into the team, sort of regained his match fitness, he's looked excellent there. He just does the simple stuff really well, and that's brilliant. But one concern of mine would be if Beningibi cannot play for whatever reason, if he's injured, if he's suspended, if he suffers a dip in form, who else can you play in there? I think one option is perhaps Callum Neuenhoff, but I don't think that's his best position. I think he could do a job in there if he absolutely had to, but I don't think he offers the same sort of composure on the ball, and I don't think he recycles possession quite as well as someone like Beningibi. And then the other after that, the only other really options there would either be Peter Haring or Andy Halliday, neither of whom seem to be particularly high up Naismith's pecking order at the moment, and they're both getting on a wee bit. Haring as well, obviously coming back from injury. He's not convinced, I don't think, when he has played in recent weeks, but to be fair, he's not played in that number 6 role where he's probably got that little bit more protection from elsewhere. So again, I would think that just to plan in the instance of if Beningibi is fit and he's playing well, he's got to start. But on the instances that he cannot play for whatever reason, there's not really another option there, which I don't think there's an option there that's as reliable as supporters would like. So I think that's maybe another area where, again, it'd be someone coming in who probably won't be starting most weeks, but again, can just provide that cover for Beningibi, because Beningibi's not going to be able to play every minute of every game between now and the end of the season. And if he's not playing right now, it's difficult to see how Hearts could play the same way with the personnel that they've got, I think.
So my view on this question was, my initial view was, I didn't think Hearts really needed anyone other than if someone became available who would instantly make the first 11 better because of the players coming back from injury. Got Barry Mackay, Nathaniel Atkinson, Craig Halkett and Craig Gordon. They should all be... you never know what with Hearts and injuries and recuperation time and when players are actually going to be back. But you're looking with the winter break that you're not going to be playing for a couple of weeks, then but January business very rarely gets done in the first couple of days, so you've got loads of time to get stuff done, but also players back. So with that, you're adding arguably four first team. Certainly 4 first team players, but potentially 4 starters back into the mix. So my initial view was no, I don't think the team needs anyone other than if a certain player is going to be on a certain target is immediately adding to the team. I think you make probably a good point. One I agree with most from of the two you said was potentially a right-sided centre-back again. It depends what Hearts are going to play. If it's going to continue playing for back 4 or back 3. Sibbick's just been too inconsistent. Can you really say he's been reliable when called upon? And he's not this season. We've seen like last season, we've seen really good moments. This season, we've seen really good moments from him. And then there's still aspects of his game where he needs to improve. There's like, how long do you give a player to improve? You want to see more from him, because I think there's a really, really good player within there that needs to offer more consistency. So again, if you're bringing a right-sided centre back in there, it's almost a message to Sibbick that don't really fancy him. I see Graham's mentioned on the Facebook's comments, Graham Duthie, that right back has to be priority again. Atkinson is showing improvement under Naismith progression, and would quite like to have seen. It's unfortunate he's got his injury, because I would like to see how he developed under Naismith, because he did seem fancied. I think he's probably more suited to the way that Naismith wants to play. Now with Beningibi, the number 6 role, this is where you touch on the second aspect of the question regarding youngsters. I think if Naismith really fancies Denham, then I think there's an opportunity for Denham in that number 6 role. If Binninghamby, for example, is out, or he wanted another option to give him minutes there, because if he's not going to get minutes at minutes in that role, if someone's injured, then is he ever going to get a lot of minutes? We saw it the week for the under-21s. He came on and played right wing back against Belgium. He did actually pretty well in a ball. So it was more like our actual right back in the back five, just the way that Scotland set up. So he had that versatility. And then you've got Macaulay Tate as well, another player who is well liked by Naismith. Saw him for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and he looked really good. The way he took the ball, the way he recycled it, the way he drove forward with it. Again, we'll come on to talk about youngsters a wee bit more later on. So I know the January transfer window fans are often, or just in any January transfer or any window, sorry, whether it's summer or winter, that they want signings, but it's one of those. I don't really want to sign someone who's going to make the team a lot better. I want to leave that pathway open for if a young player does develop. The one area I would like, it's not so much a position, it's a attribute quality. I want to see more pace in the Hearts team. I think that's really really important. I just don't think sometimes we just lack blistering pace, and you saw it against Motherwell. It was good because we dominated possession, but in that team there wasn't anyone who goes to A to B very, very quickly. Forrest probably the quickest on the pitch. So pace is one. I've always had a soft spot for Joe Newbley. I know he's a divisive character in terms of his output and whether he's good enough. He's not the quickest, but he adds unpredictability and physicality to the forward line. And then I suppose I think a lot of fans would like to see a box-to-box midfielder. I think you've spoken about it with Scott McIntosh before. He's made the point that he's be a dying art, and Hearts have had two of the very best, one Scotland and Colin Cameron and Paul Hartley. That direct player. Devlin, I think, has the box-to-box qualities, but maybe not the output as those two players. So these are wee bits and bobs, but by and large, I think you look at the squad when everyone's fit, it's quite a deep squad. Still got like Tagawa as well. He's back in the squad now. I think he's still adapting. Heard good things about him in training, but training is very different to a game, and we have to remember that. I think it's a really really important point that he's come from Japan. He's never played in Scotland before. He's played in Europe before, but it does take time for guys to adapt. Look at Alan Forrest. It took him. He came from Livingston and he was in and out of the team last season, and it's only really now he started to like contribute on a consistent basis. So I think there are those things to consider with Tagawa, but yeah, January transfer window will be interesting. It's something we will explore more. Which leads on to the second question from Scott McIntosh, was that given the recent yearly accounts, would it be prudent for the club to be proactive in their spending and adopt the strategy of filling squad and bench spaces with more academy players, better doing it now rather than waiting on donations to potentially stop? So I know, James, you've not seen a lot of the B team, don't know a lot of the particularly a lot of the players involved, but is that something that you think Hearts should be looking at with trying to maybe minimise the size of the squad and kind of contribute to it with youngsters?
I mean, perhaps. I mean, if the players are good enough, then yeah, absolutely. You want them filling in the squads and doing that. That's why you have an academy. That's why you've got a B team. The whole idea is that you're developing these players so they're ready for first team football when the opportunity arises. Every club in Scotland, every club in the world wants to see their academy producing players that can get involved with first team, can get minutes, can flesh out the squad. And I mean, to be fair, I think Hearts' academy if you look at it over the long haul, it does have a history of producing like good Premiership quality players at the very least, if not better. So I think that yes, that like obviously, I think everyone would like to see that. But the big question is whether or not those players are ready to make that step up. They're playing in the Lowland League, which is what, the 5th tier of Scottish football.
Yep.
I mean, it's a sizable jump going in from that, which is part-time football against amateurs, and then moving up to Premiership football where you're playing against internationals in some instances. So yeah, it's a very big jump to make, but all of it comes again. It just all comes down to whether or not the players are ready to make that jump. And to be honest, there's probably, pardon me, there's probably no one better placed to make that assessment than Stephen Naismith. Obviously, he's the current head coach, but obviously he had time at the academy, the B team before that. He knows these players. He knows exactly what they're capable of, and what stage of the development they're at. So I think that Scott's point is. I think Scott's point is right. The fact that, yes, the Hearts should be aspiring to fill out the squad with academy players, giving them minutes. And again, like he says, that long-term thing of it weans reliance off of investor like loans or people putting money in, which isn't going to last forever. You don't want to do that forever. You need to become sustainable. Obviously, Hearts know that better than most clubs out there, the importance of being financially self-sustaining, and academy is a great way to do that. So I think that, yeah, I think everyone would like to see more academy players given a chance, but I guess the question, my point would be that if those players aren't ready to make that step up, then that's where you need to start looking into the market, which is why I was touting, for instance, a number 6 or a right-sided centre-half, because if those players aren't getting opportunities at the moment, which, let's face it, they're not in the first team with one or two exceptions, then that would suggest to me they're probably not quite ready yet, or Naismith doesn't think they're quite ready yet. And so in order to plug those gaps in the meantime, you might have to then go to the market, and even if it's just bringing a guy in on loan for 6 months, or maybe getting an older player in on a shorter term deal, again, just to provide that cover. But we'd all like to see it. We'd all like to see academy players getting more minutes, but I would imagine that the players at the B team who are in the B team at the moment, Naismith doesn't seem to think that they're quite ready yet. So that's obviously a big barrier for them.
So there's an issue with it also should be noticed. There's an issue with playing in the B team and playing in the first team, and Murray on Facebook makes the point about what do you think guys think of the rule that is Adam Denham now in the first team. I can't now play for the B team. So I believe I should have looked at this before coming on, because I thought maybe this would have been brought up, or I should have brought it up. Was I think the ruling for the first year of Hearts in the Lone League changed. I think perhaps changed from year to year, but I believe that once you've played 5, have you played 5 first team games? Played 5 first team games, you can no longer play for. It rules you out for playing for the B team, I believe, is the rule. So there's always that balance where you give minutes to a player, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and then next thing you know, they're not able to play the B team game. B team, and the big thing for the B team is to give these players structure in their development, where they are training, like periodization of training. They're getting into that routine of being a first team player, that they know a game is coming at the weekend, which has not always been the case. When if the Hearts didn't have a B team game, the B team, they'd be having organised friendlies and organised games. It's a wee bit. It's not as structured. Whereas this is giving players, they know when they're training, they know when they're eating, they know when they're playing, and there's kind of a routine of getting the kind of the first team routine. I think that's a big thing, or like a first team environment, which is big for them. And it also should be noted that a lot of these guys do train with the first team from time to time, so they've been involved in that area. And it's one of those where do you put just say Bobby McCluckie on the bench, and then, for example, like I'm just trying to think when the last time we played. So last Saturday when we were playing Motherwell, do you bring Bobby McCluckie along and put him on the bench but then he's not playing against, I think it was Edinburgh United.
Mm.
Sorry, Edinburgh University. It's that balance between, is his development better by being involved in the first team on the bench, maybe not getting any minutes, or playing a game of football on the Saturday in the Lowland League? It's that balance. I'm not sure what the correct answer is. Like I said, Naismith's a really good position to judge. I've watched a fair bit of the on and off this season of the B team. I think there's a few players that I like. I've mentioned Macaulay Tate, and I know he's someone that Naismith likes. The person that's been spoke about a lot is Mackenzie Kirk. He's scored a lot of goals in the B team. In my opinion, watching him, I'm not sure he's ready to make this step up and just say, "Oh, bring him on for Shankland." I think that's probably too much to ask, and I think he's probably someone that you're looking at and maybe would benefit from a loan spell elsewhere in the SPFL to get used to, because he came up. I'd seen him most recent time I've seen him was against University of Stirling, and he didn't get a sniff. The uni defence were all over him. He wasn't involved in the game as much, and I still think there's that physicality that's massive for, especially that position when he's playing with his back to goal. It's okay for maybe a winger because they can get a wee bit more space and run at players. That physicality is that's a big thing, and that again, that's something that we're working on behind the scenes at the club with gym programs and nutrition, which is massive in that condition side. Players who obviously Adam Forrester was named on the bench, highlighted right back. They mentioned Macaulay Tate. Callum Sandilands is another one who is, I think he looks like he has physically improved, but he's also, I would say, a different kind of player that Hearts don't have in the first team with the midfield, where he can drive forward. He likes to play passes in behind opposition defence, but he also likes to get into the box and score goals. That kind of box-to-box player I was talking about earlier, who'd have that threat. So he's certainly one to keep an eye on. I think, again, high hopes from Bobby McCluckie is probably the most exciting player. I think he's a typical winger in that he can be exhilarating 1 minute, frustrating the next. But again, every time I go and watch the B team, he's one that I'm kind of looking forward to watching, just to see what he can conjure up. And then there's a right back who caught my eye at the start of the season called Rocco Frio. I think he's been injured recently. Certainly not seen him play too much recently. I think he does have an injury again. Someone who looks physically imposing, really composed on the ball, and definitely has a bit about him. But I think it's the biggest, probably the biggest difficulty, the biggest balancing act that there is with bringing youth players into the team, because you need to also take into account that fans will moan about why we're not producing any players, and then at the same time will moan about not signing players, or they'll bring players into the first team and then moan about them not being good enough. But then also you need to balance it with they're just 17, 18, 19, 20. This is their first exposure of first team football. They need, similar signings, they need to be given patience. They need to be given time to adapt, to make mistakes, to learn. And it's trying to create that environment. And I do think Naismith is really conscious of that. Big thing for Naismith about him getting the job was his work with the B team, his work in the youth team, that Hearts are really, really keen to increase that pathway, because the academy was neglected towards the end of Romanoff's spell at the club, and then Craig Levine had to come in as director of football and try and provide some structure, direction to it. And now, following COVID and then changes with Felix Savage coming in, they wanted to make changes and trying to take it on to the next level. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but it's something they really want, and that's why a key reason why Naismith got the job. Naismith has spoken before about recruitment, how he wants to have a core squad that when players are signed, they're not having to be performed straight away. They can be given time to adapt and time to bed in and get used to the culture, both living in a new country, joining a new team, a club, etc., etc. That's where I think youth players could helping that if we have this steady flow from the youth into the first team, that there's guys who are ingrained in the club, they know what's about, and can be trusted to play. So yeah, it's a very it's a very complex situation. Not complex. It's a very interesting situation where it's sometimes you can see, you could look at someone in the B team and like, don't think he's great, or he's average, or he's not as good as others, and then you move them. You can move two players into the first team, and the player who was perhaps performing not as well in the B team compared to the other could thrive in a first team environment, whether it's possession or the way the first team play, or just the demands, the pressure, the intensity of games might suit a certain player better than it does others. So there's just so many things up in the air about developing youngsters, which is interesting. Why I don't just like play young. I think it's important not to go OTT criticism or this way or that way.
No, yeah, Joe, I think you make a really good point there as well. The fact that there are certain players who, for instance, they might not be playing to their full potential in the B team, but then when they get a chance in the first team, might excel. Part of that is because there are certain players who just play better when they've got better players around them. You know, and obviously the first team is better than the B team. So there are certain players like that who just, once the standard around them has been raised, they adapt to that a lot quicker. But I think the thing that you said, though, that I think is an excellent point, is the fact that it is this balancing act that needs to be struck. Like, it is a tightrope, and I'm not sure what the right answer is. I mean, you look at, like you say, if, what's more valuable, playing the last 5 minutes off the bench against Motherwell, or playing 90 minutes against Edinburgh Uni? I'd suggest it's probably the 90, but then if it's, okay, well, would you rather have 4 or 5 games at that level, at the Lowland League level, or 45 minutes in the Premiership? And then I go, well, actually the 45 minutes in the Premiership sounds like a good deal to me there, because I think you're going to learn a lot in that time. Yeah. So again, it's that thing where it's a really difficult balancing act to make. Like, I don't know. And like you said, it's difficult because you want to have that structure with the B team players and academy players, so they're into that rhythm of, okay, match day -2, this is what we do. Match day -1, this is what we do. The day after the game, this is how we analyze. The day after that, this is how we start preparing for the next game. They need to get into that structure and that routine of what it's like just playing week in, week out regular football. But at the same time, we all know the Lowland League, with the greatest respect to it, it's not the best level in the world, and there probably is a limit as to how much you can learn there before you need to test yourself. So I think, like, at a higher level, so I think that, for instance, the Lowland League, it's presumably very good for developing players' physicality, as you said, because obviously it's going to be a lot more physical than you're going to get in the Premiership. It's a bit more rough and tumble, a bit more kind of quintessential Scottish football, I suppose. There's always kind of hard men knocking lumps out of each other. But then I think when you get to the Premiership, it's going to be a completely different kind of task that awaits, because there's going to be a lot more asked to be tactically. It's going to be the football that you're going to be playing is going to be a lot more sophisticated. So is the opposition, what they're trying to do. And I think that, again, when you looked at when you are trying to make that step up, like, those are the matches, like those, like 20 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes against the Premiership teams, those are the ones where you're going to learn, oh, right, okay, I can get away with that in the Lowland League. I can't get away with that in the Premiership. Or, Joe, this is something that, I'm a great dribble with the ball. I'm great at beating a man and getting a cross in. Maybe you're good at doing that against guys in the Lowland League, but when you do it against a international fullback, you can't do it anymore. You find a different way of playing. So again, it's all these little things that go into these decisions. But yeah, I don't envy Naismith, because it's not an easy one. It's not an easy decision to make.
But sometimes it's just a case of, you look at, I think these are special cases because these guys were obviously very, very good. Gary Naismith was chucked in against Celtic at 16-year-old. Aaron Hickey was, I think, his third appearance. So he came off the bench against Aberdeen, made his first start against Celtic in the league, and then was thrown in a Scottish Cup final against Celtic and excelled at like 16. So sometimes you just, you know what, kind of sink or swim almost. Like, just take that risk and we'll see if it pays off. Just give. If you really like a youngster, may as well just give him in. It's like kind of rip the band-aid off almost, and just chuck him in and see how it goes. So yeah, it's especially with, I think, Derek Scott here makes the point that with 9, you've got 9 like players on the bench. So there's always space for youngsters, but again, the balance it with, do they play games or etc. So yeah, like I said, it's an interesting one, and we'll move on, because just want to touch on Scotland and Shankland and Zander Clark on their involvement over the last 2 games for Scotland. Firstly, a couple of questions, Graham. Do you think there'll be a chance there'll be offers for Shankland in January, and how much would be acceptable? And Michael Donald, about Shanks will be at Hearts after January. So we kind of spoke about that. We spoke about this on Friday around Shankland. I would imagine there would be interest in them in January, but at the same time, I think whoever comes in for him would need to give Hearts a lot of money for him, and we speculated how much that would be on Friday's show. So yeah, I think Hearts would. I think Hearts would be hard to deal with, especially regarding Shankland. The piece went up on Hearts Standard today about the player trading model that the club want to bring in funds through selling on players. However, again, it's a balancing act, because they need to be replaced, and how much is Shankland worth in a transfer fee compared to how much he's worth to the team and trying to qualify from Europe this season into next season. So yeah, that we spoke about that on Friday, but we did see Shankland score his second goal, not his first, his second goal for Scotland in the 2-2 draw with Georgia last week, coming off the bench. Everyone thought, well, certainly I thought he would have started against Norway, and then unfortunately it was Jacob Brown who started up front rather than Shankland. And then you saw that there was a triple change around the hour mark or whatever, and Jacob Brown went off. You're like, oh, perfect, a good opportunity for Shankland to get some minutes. Nope, Lyndon Dykes came on, and then Shankland was brought on in the, I don't know, was it the 86th or 89th minute or something? Got
something like that, yeah.
A handful of minutes, which was very, very frustrating, because you think this would be a striker full on confidence, and I understand he wasn't in the squad originally, but full of confidence. You'd like to see, okay, maybe Clark wants to see more of Jacob Brown, and he's been around the squad perhaps a wee bit longer, and whether it's a reward for that. But then to bring on Lyndon Dykes, Clark knows everything there is to know about Lyndon Dykes. Just bring on Shankland for that last hour, half hour at least, because you're not started him, and give him some game time to get into it and see what he can do.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all wanted to see Shankland play. I think even you're going by what people were saying on Twitter last night, basically everyone, even non-Hearts fans, were wanting to see Shankland come on and see what he could do. I suppose the most optimistic way of looking at it would be that after his goal against Georgia, Steve Clarke has decided that Shankland's on the plane and in the squad anyway, and maybe he's not sure about Jacob Brown. Maybe that's the most optimistic way you could look at
it. Yeah, I kind of jokingly tweeted that last night, but I think people were taking that really, really seriously when I was having replies. But no, it was kind of just tongue in cheek when I suggested that.
But again,
it makes sense.
No, yeah. Again, though, yeah, I think part of it comes down to the fact that we know Steve Clarke is very loyal to his players. You know, we look at the squads over the last couple of years. There's not really many changes. A lot of the same players get called up, even if they've not maybe been playing for a club side. They're still in the squad. He likes having a largely similar group of players every international window. So I think that's probably why we ended up seeing Brown, for instance, starting. But yeah, bringing on Dykes the last half hour or so was mystifying, I suppose, particularly when Shankland's had to feed off scraps. He's only been coming on for a few minutes at a time, and you think, especially after coming on for a few minutes against Georgia, getting the equaliser, surely he's done enough to earn a few more minutes, but apparently not. No, so yeah, definitely would have liked to have seen more of Shankland, but I think that even these 2 games there, even though he's only played 10 minutes all in, I think he's shown enough within that 10 minutes to. I think he can book his seat to Germany next summer. I think he's going to be on the plane no matter what now, unless he gets injured, of course. But I think that he did. They said in that 10 minutes he showed more than Jacob Brown showed in the 60 minutes that he played. And I think that it's a point that's been echoed a lot over the last few days, but Shankland is Scotland's best goal scorer at the moment. He is. Like Lyndon Dykes, he's got a lot of qualities, but he's never exactly been prolific or reliable in front of goal. Che Adams is a very good striker. He's probably the best striker Scotland have in terms of
Yeah,
his
I agree with that.
ability, but he's out of form. Jacob Brown again, he's playing at Luton Town team. He's not. I don't think he's scored yet this season. He's not scoring goals. Whereas Shankland, you know that Shankland is an actual goal scorer. That's obviously the best part of his game. But as Hearts fans are very aware, he offers so much more than that as well. And like that's why he's suited to international football, in my opinion. It's not that he just scores goals, which he does. It's his all-round play, which is the sign of an international level striker, I would argue.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of Lyndon Dykes. I think I look at Lyndon Dykes like, oh, he'd be a great heart striker just because he's a pain in the arse. He's physical. He's a nuisance. Okay, he doesn't score loads of goals. I think there's an option for him. There's definitely Dykes has to be in that squad because
absolutely,
he brings chaos, and it's great seeing him ruffle up defenders playing in Europe because they just really don't like dealing with him. However, we've seen Dykes so many times. Everyone knows what he offers. He offers just play Shankland because Shankland is, I think he's better than Dykes. I think he's a better footballer than Dykes. I think he is a better goal scorer. He's Scotland's best of players are available to Scotland. He's the best they have as a goal scorer, and he has to be on that plane. And I would imagine as long as he stays fit in relatively good form, he will. Like Clark can't ignore him. He's
I think that's the case.
That has to be, and I just found it when I seen was annoyed with the starting lineup. I could see it, and but then the substitution would just blew my mind. I was just like, what are you doing? I was at 50 Cent, and I was looking at it, going with my partner, and she was singing along to like In the Club or PIMP. I'm looking at my phone, just shaking my head. It's like, why are you bringing Dykes on for Shankland? Anyway, that's enough of that.
I mean, to be fair though, just to quickly throw out, I mean, the same thing happens in other positions. How many times have Scotland been taking off a centre mid with 20 minutes to go, and you think, all right, here's a chance for Lewis Ferguson, and Kenny McLean strolls on. It's like it's a thing we've seen before. Again, that's that Clark thing about he likes to be loyal to his players.
Yeah.
I guess the other one as well. Do we touch on Xander Clark?
So I think we do. I obviously wasn't his best night. I didn't watch the game in full, but I've watched the highlights, and with the way my Twitter's set up is that it was very much Hearts focused to Scotland. So there was a lot of question marks around Shankland, and then but for a different reason, there was question marks about Clark. I think the big one over the two games was a third goal last night.
Yeah.
You can see, I mean, us saying Clark did the poor there. I mean, Clark doesn't need to be told that. You can see in his reaction that he was absolutely raging with himself because he misjudged it. And I suppose that's the big thing, that if I was critical of Clark since as a Hearts goalkeeper, it's sometimes his decision making. It can be hesitant, and it can be sometimes decision making from crosses. Can be questions, and we've seen it there. He just didn't read it at all.
Aye, no, I don't know how much there is to say, to be honest, because as we said, the third goal, it's a bad mistake. It's cost the team a goal. Fine. Aside from that, during the game, he was largely okay. He didn't. He maybe could have done a wee bit better at the second as well, I suppose.
So the first one, the first one took a deflection. The second one, when I first saw it, I was like, oh. But then the more I watched it, the fact it came off McGregor, I think he reacted quite well to that, and then it kind of just spilled over him. It looked messy, but I don't think it was a fault or mistake.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's my point. It's like I don't think he's to blame for that one. He could have perhaps done a wee bit better, but maybe that's me being a bit harsh. But to be honest, I mean, we saw him play that 45 minutes against France and Lille, and France are one of the best, if not the best, teams in the world. And again, he was largely fine then as well. So I think that. I mean, I don't think it will be starting for Scotland by the time the Euros kicks off in Germany next summer. I don't think that's likely to happen. But will it be part of the squad still? Yeah, because I saw some people saying, "Oh, he's got to go from the squad. He's not good enough." But I mean, you'd imagine that Angus Gunn will probably be the starting in goals, unless, of course, Craig Gordon makes it back into the Scotland squad, which would be absolutely wonderful. I think we'd all love to see that. That'd be a fantastic story.
If Gordon, so Ross Parker asked when is Gordon back. I mean, I was hopeful that he'd be back this month, but the way they've been very conservative. Hearts have been very conservative with it, and they're looking at more likely after the international break. I'm still doubtful about the winter break. I'm still doubtful about that. I'm hoping to see Halkett and Gordon before then, but I think if Gordon's fit, if Gordon's fit, then he's going to be Hearts number one, and if he's Hearts number one, he's going to the Euros.
Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's true. I think the interesting thing is, Gordon's comeback could potentially nudge Clark out of the squad, but I would imagine the fact that Clark played these last two matches for Scotland would suggest he's ahead of Liam Kelly in the pecking order.
Yeah,
and I think that's deserved as well, because I think that Kelly, while I think in the past he's been an excellent goalie, I think he's not quite shown that same level of form this season, and obviously Motherwell are struggling quite heavily at the moment as well. So I would imagine that we might end up actually seeing two Hearts goalkeepers at the Euros next summer on that squad, because presumably Clark's going to pick three. But and I know some people were saying, Joe, these games showed Zander Clark is not cut out for Scotland, he can't do it. I don't think that. I think that's harsh. I think that's a bit unfair. And again, he's still starting ahead of Liam Kelly, which to me suggests that he's still performing better than Kelly. And I think if anyone's going to be looking nervously over their shoulder between now and next summer, it's going to be Liam Kelly.
So the big thing with Clark spoke to someone who played for Scotland, and we're asking him about who to go for, Clark or Kelly, and Kenny went Clark because of his presence. I think he's a bigger goalkeeper than Kelly, etc., etc. We'll leave it there. We've spoken for 41 minutes, James. That's far longer than we usually do. So we were going to speak about Foundation of Hearts reaching 16 million. Milestone, but again, there's not a lot to add. Fantastic effort as ever from the organisation, the fans who continue to pledge their money, and the ambitious plans that they have, which you can read on Hearts Standard. We've got interviews with Jerry Mellon about the ambitious plans from from earlier this season. Earlier in the year, we talked about various things with Foundation of Hearts, and that I tweeted one of the pieces this morning as well. Just if people want to see that, they can go on the Hearts Standard X account or Twitter account, and you can find it there. So until Wednesday, we'll be back Wednesday morning. Hopefully, have a good day, and be sure to check out heartstandard.co.uk for all the latest from Hearts, features, interviews, etc., etc. You'll find on there. Coming this week, a couple of pieces from James, including a look at Lawrence Shankland and his goal scoring feats for the club, and how good he's been. And also there's a really interesting piece on the midfield balance that James has done around Beningame, Devlin and Lowry, a wee bit of Neuhoff and Haring as well. So that'll be up. This will be up in the next couple of days, so be sure to check out that. Until then, thank you very much. And remember, you can listen to this on Spotify, Google Podcasts and iTunes as well. Say goodbye, James.
Goodbye, James. I've done it again.